There we go. All right. So now we go back to this and we go back to sharing. And we go to this and we go to that. Okay. So apologize for missing the first couple of minutes of the recording, but here we're okay. So now we're still on 12A. Um, and here we go. Okay. Tashma. Oh, sorry, I got that one. That was the holiday, family holiday. Here's another one. Tashma de Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This is what I love. B'ta'anit ad she'avo leveiti. Okay, so he's Rabbi Yochanan said, "Wait a minute, what are you talking about? I fast. I declare a fast and show my intention to fast from the time that I leave the Beit Midrash till I get to my house. Not a real long fast. I like those fasts. Um, but but here hatab l'shamute nafshe mi bein nesiya hu de'avad. But he did it because he didn't want to have to go to the house of the Nasi to have a meal. Now, it doesn't explain to us why, but I just think this is great. You know, it's like I was thinking, my grandfather, when I was a little kid, we used to go to my grandfather's house every Sunday after Sunday school because my grandfather lived a block away from the synagogue. And we would go to his house and we would spend the afternoon there. And I remember when I was a little kid, I was just shocked. People would call my grandfather. They had a very close cousins group. And some of the cousins, especially the women cousins, would call him just to check in on how he's doing. And they'd be talking and talking. And my grandfather would get tired of talking to the people and he would and I once saw him, he covered his phone and he waited a couple of seconds and I was curious what he was doing. And then he got back on the phone. He said, I have visitors at the door. I have to go. Bye. And he didn't want to talk to the person anymore. So at a time I was shocked, adults aren't supposed to lie like that. But it's the same kind of thing. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan didn't want to talk to the Nasi. He's bored or something. Or he didn't want to, he was tired of going to his house for food. Maybe they had bad food. Whatever reason, he used the excuse of saying, I've declared a fast, Nasi. I can't go to your house for food today because I'm fasting. But in his head, he's only fasting until he gets to his own house. So I thought that was a great, little example of realia in the world of the rabbis. So now we continue. Omar Shmuel, Kol Tanit Shalo Kibel Alav Mib'od Yom Lav Shamei Tanit. So here we have the issue of intention. That when you're fasting, according to Shmuel, you have to declare your fast the day before. And if you haven't, then you can't. Then just not eating isn't enough. You have to show your intention. I don't know if here he means like declaring it in public. I don't know if that means you have to declare it to yourself, but you have to take it upon yourself. Let's see what the note says. Some commentaries observe that the halacha that on the afternoon prior to a proposed fast, one must commit himself to it, and from the verse, sanctify a fast. Okay, so here it's not so clear whether you do it to yourself or you have to tell other people. We're going to get the moment where Shmuel seems to say you declare it publicly in some way. But the Gemara asks, okay, ve'i yatev mai. So what is it? What say you didn't declare it? You just didn't eat all day. Amar Rava bar Shela dame lemapucha de malia zika. You're like a bellows that's just full of wind, full of air, right? You just didn't eat, but you don't get. You have to declare it. So there's a difference again between fasting and just not eating.
I enjoyed that image of the bellows full of
air. Yeah. Right. So. But I think this is important because, again, we talk about there's arguments on both sides. What's the rabbi's attitude towards an ascetic lifestyle? Is it a positive thing? Is it a negative thing? And we've seen some statements on both ways. That the last time we looked on Daf 11, that it was you're called a sinner if you fast, and you're called holy if you fast. And so there seems to be a tension about fasting, but certainly, and here it seems to at least mitigate the idea that if you're going to fast for a pious reason, you have to declare it. You just don't stop eating. You have to take it upon yourself, as they say here. So here, emat mikabele. When do you take it upon yourself? How do you do this? So Rav amar b'mincha, Shmuel amar b'tfilat mincha. And Seinfeld had notes here about there was discussion among commentaries what it means, because both, doesn't mincha mean the afternoon prayer? Obviously, Rav seems to be saying something different. According to most early authorities, explain that according to the opinion of Rav, one who wishes to observe an individual fast is required to take that fast upon himself at some point the previous afternoon. So really any time. And then there's different periods. There's two periods of the mincha gedola and mincha ketana. Mincha gedola is, what is it? It's, I think it's any time after 12 and a half hours of the day. So it's early afternoon, it's right after midpoint of the day would be the mincha gedola period. And some people argue you can say the mincha service during that period. And some people argue mincha ketana, which is, I think, an hour and a quarter before sunset. So that's a much shorter period of time and much closer to the end of the day. So those are two. But here, Rav Hai Gaon states, you got to commit it during that mincha gedola time, that second half of the afternoon. Here it is, half an hour after midday. And Rabbeinu Gershon says it's mincha ketana. Okay, so according to some early authorities, Rav says that one must commit to the fast during the afternoon only to emphasize the difference between his opinion and that of Shmuel, we're going to read in a moment, who rules that you have to do it during the afternoon prayer. Rav maintains that one who wishes to observe an individual fast may take it upon himself well in advance. So when he says mincha, I guess he means it has to be done by the afternoon of the previous day. I guess you could take it a few days in. I could say, next Wednesday I'm going to fast. And here's the difference. According to Rav, the undertaking of a fast is considered a vow to perform a meritorious deed. So he thinks fasting is a positive pious act, and you can begin that vow well in advance. Shmuel, however, argues that one undertakes to observe a fast is not vowing to perform a meritorious deed because you're causing suffering to yourself, but rather it's simply, you have to indicate, it's just a moment of time when you indicate you're going to do something. So like Shabbat, on Shabbat, we accept Shabbat before Shabbat by lighting candles, the recitation of the Psalm for Shabbat in the Kabbalat Shabbat service is considered to be the actual acceptance of Shabbat. You're doing it well before Shabbat starts, or a little bit before Shabbat starts. So but that's a declaration. So Shmuel is saying, if you're going to commit yourself to a fast for whatever reason, you have to, you do it right before the fast begins, which would be in that, as he says here, wait, where did I lose my place here? Shmuel. Amar Shmuel b'tfilat mincha. You do it during that afternoon prayer service right before the fast, right before the day when the fast is begin. And remember, the fast is going to begin that next morning, because we're not talking about Tisha B'Av here. We're not talking about Yom Kippur. We're talking about like a fast more similar to the 10th of Tammuz, which we just observed. Wait. 10th of Tevet, which we just observed a few weeks ago. All right. So, Amar Rav Yosef, Kavate Deshmo Mistabra, Dichtiv Megillat Tanit, Lachain, Kol Inish Diyete Aloi Mikadmat Dina Yesar. Okay, so a little stuck on this, what they're saying here. We can look at the notes. Rav Yosef said it stands to reason that the halacha should be in accordance with Shmuel, who's arguing you've got to make a declaration before the day of the fast, because in Megillat Ta'anit, which is different from our Ta'anit, which is a tractate, Megillat Ta'anit was this text written in the temple period of special days you couldn't fast, actually, a Ta'anit to fast. And so this was a day of, what are the days you can fast, what are the days you can't fast, because there were all these communal celebrations. Today we only have Hanukkah and Purim, but there were all these other ones in this Megillah. So after a list of all the festivals established by the sages in commemoration of various events throughout history, therefore, whoever has bound himself beforehand with an obligation to fast on one of these commemorative days, he will be bound. But then the issue is the term yeser. Is it yesar or yeaser? Let's read this paragraph a little bit, then we'll go to the notes. The Gemara explains the apparent proof from the text of Megillat Ta'anit. What, is it not the case that this means that he binds himself to the obligation at the time of prayer, at Mincha? And if he did not do so at that point in time, his fast does not go into effect? And the Gemara rejects that. La ye'aser atzmo. No, the text should be amended by one letter. It should read ye'aser. He shall render himself prohibited from transgressing these instructions. In other words, the text is explaining that despite a prior vow to fast, it is prohibited for one to do so on the commemorative days enumerated in Megillat Ta'anit. So let's go down here to the note, because I was a little stuck on this. Okay, here it says. Some commentaries ask how the reading, he binds himself, supports the opinion of Shmuel, that you got to declare it right before the fast day. Even Rav agrees that one who wishes to observe a fast must obligate himself beforehand. He just says you can do it earlier that day or the day before. Rav can simply explain that one must commit himself at some point during the afternoon before his proposed fast. So the Ritva, who's one of these Talmudic commentators, answers that Rav maintains that one is not required to commit to his proposed fast in the afternoon prayer because he holds that committing a fast constitutes a vow to perform a meritorious deed. Consequently, it follows that it is not necessary for him to declare that he is taking the fast on the previous day at all. Instead, he can commit to the fast well in advance. Okay, we've seen this. In which case, there would be no need for him to mention the fast once again the day before, right? If you can declare it on Monday, or today I say I'm going to take a fast on Wednesday. I don't need Tuesday afternoon to declare it because I've already said I'm going to be fasting on Wednesday. For this reason, the Gemara claims that this section of Megillat Ta'anit is not in accordance with the opinion of Rav. The Gemara answers that the text must be amended to read, he shall render himself prohibited. This means that if one has taken a fast upon himself beforehand, he may not eat on that day, even if it occurs on a day when fasting is prohibited. So I'm not really sure how this, but I think what it's saying is, if you said, all right, let's use the 10th of Tevet. That's a day fast, it's a communal fast. But if you say, I'm gonna fast on, no, we're backwards. Let's say there's a mini holiday. I don't know, in the ancient times, they had holidays for all types of wonderful things that happened. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you thought that the day that the embassy in Jerusalem was moved to the embassy in Tel Aviv, the American embassy moved it to Jerusalem. Let's say that was a day of celebration. We've been waiting for this for all this time, and that we're going to declare this to be a holiday day. And so in the Megillat Ta'anit, it would say this is a day you can't fast because it's a mini holiday. So I think what they're saying is, if I'm by changing the language to ye'aser atzmo, if Wednesday was the day of celebration for moving the embassy, and you're not supposed to fast, but on today I said I'm going to fast on Wednesday, you've basically taken a vow upon yourself, and you render yourself prohibited. I think that's what it means, but the language is a little confusing of the way he explained it. So I think that's what he said. So that even though I I declared myself to fast on a certain day that everybody else wouldn't fast because it was a day that you weren't supposed to fast. I've now prohibited myself from fasting. Whereas I guess Shmuel, who says you have to fast, you have to declare a Tuesday afternoon, but if you knew Tuesday afternoon that Wednesday was this mini holiday, you prohibited yourself from transgressing that day. You can't do it. I guess that I think,
How I figured it was the declaring it at afternoon prayers. I thought of it as like a public statement instead of just saying to yourself anywhere. You're around other people, presumably you have at least 9 other people around you for
yeah,
afternoon prayers, and you're saying, "Hey, everybody, just so you know, I'm going to take a fast tomorrow," and that's the way of declaring it, because you have witnesses, so to speak.
right.
Like, no, this is a real fast. I told those other guys, and then so that's what I feel they meant as far as doing it at the prayer
Yeah.
to make it more. You can't just do it anytime because then nobody really knows if you did it.
Okay.
Versus if you do it at prayers, people know that you declared it. I think what Shmuel was going for was sort of priority. We prioritize things as far as this. This takes precedent over. Shabbat takes precedent over a fast. And I think what Shmuel was going for is if you declare a fast and then realize later it was a commemorative holiday, the commemorative holiday does not take priority over the fast, and other people say, no, it does. I think that's what Shmuel was going for.
Yeah.
Was
maybe.
trying to say that if you declared a fast and then realize later that you shouldn't have, it's too late. You've already declared it. You got to follow through now and fulfill that obligation, even if you messed up.
Okay.
That's what I think he was
That's
going for.
basically the way I read it. But it strikes me, I found even more striking is the method of argument here.
Mm-hmm.
That no, we'll change the text to accord with our opinion.
Well, that's a very good point, because you see what it tells us is that there was a lot of fluidity in these texts. That is, remember, this isn't like today where we've got a printing press and it gets, and they print 1,000, 10,000 books and everybody can see in the book what it says. They have these manuscripts that they're passing around, and there aren't that many anyway. And so scribes are writing them, and people make mistakes. So so it's not that we're going to change the text, it's that there obviously must be different versions of these texts. And so one person is reading it, Yesar, he will be bound by the agreement. And another person says, wait, no, you missed it. There was an aleph in there. It's Yeaser Atzmo. So it means he is forbidden, he is prohibited from this. And so how you read it, and what's interesting too is we've seen this twice now with the word Yeser and Yeaser, which sound very much alike each other, right? But they're two different roots. One is Yud Samech Resh and one is Aleph Samech Resh. So there is confusion in the language and there is fluidity here, but it is, so I don't know which way it's going. I don't know if it's they want to prove their point, and so they take the text that's out there that has Yeaser as opposed to Yesar, or if it's that they said, no, wait, you got the wrong text. Our text has Yeaser, so it must be reading this way. Yeah. But that's a good point, that there's fluidness here. We like to think that these things are fixed, but they're not. And we know, I mean, look, that's an argument of critical Bible study too, is that the texts were fluid. And we know and that's what one of the important discoveries of the Dead Sea Scrolls was, is that you found texts written very late. We're not talking about 500 before the Common Era. We're talking about once the Bible itself has been, what we believe the Tanakh had been canonized in the first century of the Common Era, or before the Common Era, we assume these texts were canonized by then, and then you've got these Dead Sea Scrolls from that period of time where they have a different text. So did they make it up, or was the text in flux? So it's not clear today, but it does seem that there were, and it makes sense that if you have people scribes writing things, there are going to be mistakes. There are going to be, we know from our Torah scroll that we just bought, our new Torah scroll, there's lots of mistakes that scribes make. So yeah, so that's a good question. Is did they intentionally change it, or did they have a change, a text with a different wording, and they interpreted it differently? Okay, well, here we keep going, and it's a plige ba Rabbi Chia veRabbi Shimon b'Rabbi Charamar. Here's another example: Yeasar v'Charamar Yeaser Mandamar Yesar kida Amrinan leMandamar Yeaser Mahi. So I love this too, because the Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shimon, one of them said, and the other one said. So here too, they don't remember who said which. They have this tradition that the two of them were disagreeing, but they can't remember which one said which argument. So here too is another example of fluidity in the transmission of these teachings. So anyway, one had it will be bound, one says he will be prohibited. The one who said he will be bound is just as we say up here. This is Shmuel and Rav Yosef, but the one who says he will be prohibited, what does it mean? So here we have the Tanya b'Megillat Tanit. Okay, again we have Megillat Tanit. Kol inish diyete aloi mikadmat dina yeaser. Whoever has taken upon himself beforehand to fast on one of these festival days, he will be prohibited to eat and drink. How so? Ketzad. Yachid shekibel alav sheni v'chamishi v'sheni. Right, that's 3-day fast that you take when there's a drought, and you take upon yourself this 3 fasts. Shel kol hashana kula, took upon himself the entire year. He took upon himself a fast, a Monday, Thursday, Monday fast. Ve'eru bam yamim tovim. But right, so I've declared every Monday, Thursday, and Monday I'm going to be doing these fasts for the whole year. But you don't realize, a Monday or a Thursday, you might have a holiday, one of these holidays that you can't fast. Im nidro kodem legezeratenu yivatel nidro et gezeratenu. If the vow preceded our decree, let's see where it says here. If the vow preceded, the early authorities suggest several interpretations. Rashi and many other early commentaries explain that this refers to the time when the sages first instituted the commemorative days recorded in Megillat Tanit. Again, so even this period of time, there were holidays, they were throwing in new holidays, I guess, various times. It wasn't fixed. If the vow preceded the decree of the holiday, then the fast is annulled. No, if the decree, then the vow is valid. If the decree, we're celebrating, January 25th because of something good that happened, and then you take the vow, then your fast is annulled. But others understand the Gemara differently. In a case in which one has committed himself to a series of fasts, if he's already observed one or more of them, and the next fast falls on a day recorded in Megillat Tanit, then his vow overrules the decree of the sages. Right? You said Monday, Thursday, Monday. I started on the Monday, the first Monday, but the next Monday is a holiday. I got to complete the series. However, if he has not yet observed any of his fasts, it's Sunday, and the first of the series falls on a commemorative day, the decree of the sages cancels his vow. Okay, here's another possibility. Yet others explain that if one undertook a series of fasts before the rabbinical court sanctified the new moon, in which case he could not have known when he vowed that his fast would fall on days recorded in Megillat Tanit. Remember, because this is a time when you don't really set the calendar until the rabbinical court determines, okay, today's the first day of Shvat, and now we go forward for the month of Shvat. You didn't know until they declared it what the first day was going to be. Then in that case, he could not have known when he vowed that his fast would fall on the days recorded in Megillat Tanit. Then his vow overrules the sage's decree because they came later. Conversely, if one vowed after the quarter to sanctify the new moon, so you know how the month lines up, then the decree of the sages cancels his vow. So a lot of possibilities here. Okay. So, and it says here, so the decree of the sages his vow annuls our decree and he must fast, but if our decree preceded his vow, our decree annuls his fast and he may not fast on those days. Okay. New question. Tanu Rabbanan. Ad matai ochel v'shotah. Until what time can you eat, right? Because, again, remember, day begins at nightfall, the previous night, goes through to the next night. But the fast is a daytime fast. So until what time can you eat and drink once the day starts at nighttime? Right? It gets dark at 6 o'clock. You can eat until what time before sunup? Well, that's a question, actually. Ad ya'aleh amud hashachar. Until amud hashachar is usually dawn. That's when you first see light in the sky. The light just begins. It's actually not. It's not sunup. Actually, it's a little before sunup when the light begins to come over the horizon. That's according to Rabbi Elazar, but Rabbi Shimon Omer ad karot hagever. Here they're understanding that as even earlier. So it's even before this. It's when the first. It's a little bit earlier. So the light isn't shining before sunup. It's actually still dark out, but the first glimmers of light begin, and the crow calls out because he's aware that the morning is beginning. So according to this, Karot HaGever is a little bit earlier before dawn.
This translates it as rooster.
Right. What did I say? Right. Until the call of the rooster. So Karot HaGever is so. Oh, did I say crow? I mean, no. When the rooster calls in the morning, which is before dawn. So it's a time earlier before dawn. The time that we use now is Alot HaShachar and Amud HaShachar. Alot HaShachar is when there's the morning star, which is just before the light. The sun is not over the horizon, and you're not seeing the light shine right before, but the sky is getting a little bit lighter in the day, and for the coming day. So this is a little bit. And the point is that when can you eat? You can eat from the nighttime all the way up until dawn, or a little bit earlier. You can eat until it's still dark out, but the glimmers of morning light are coming up. Amar Abaye lo shanu ela shelo gamar seudato. So he says, yeah, that's true, but you can't. But we're talking about really what they're talking about is that if you haven't finished your meal, like if you were eating all night long, if your meal was in front of you all night long until the sun comes up, yeah, then you can keep eating. But if you finished your dinner at 8 o'clock, you can't eat anymore. Aval gamar seudato eino ochel. And just as I pointed out that what I'll do actually on certain fast days, these minor fasts, especially the one in the summer, the Shiva 17th of Tammuz, which is 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av. I mean, that is almost a whole day fast. I mean, it's the sun is up at 5 o'clock in the morning or something, and you don't eat until 9 o'clock or something like that. It's really long. It's almost like a full fast. And so sometimes I'll get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, whatever that time is, and I'll have breakfast because there's no way I'm going to make it through the day. But here we have some of these issues. So Eitive Rava, so Rava argues from an earlier source, which states, Gamar ve'amad hareza ochel. You finish your meal and you stood up, you can still keep eating. But the response is hatam kishalo silek. Silek is to remove something. And here, this is actually connected to Pesach. We see this in the Pesach material too. When you remove the table, removed or cleared the table. They used to eat on these little tables. Instead of one big table, you'd have a little table sitting in front of you with your food. And the reason why it's connected to Pesach is on Pesach, we ask the 4 questions, and the Mishnah on Pesach says you have the karpas, and you eat the karpas, and then at some point they remove the table, and then the questions. Well, we have the 4 questions. The way our Haggadah works now is you do the karpas, and then you have some material, and then you ask the 4 questions. And the reason for the questioning then is because you haven't finished your meal, and in the Mishnah explains that the child asks at that point, why'd you take the table away? We're not done yet. So our current Haggadah understands it as now you ask the 4 questions. But in the Mishnah itself, it's just that the kid is asking a question, wait a minute, why are you taking the table away? We didn't get to the main dinner. What's going on here? So it's just a sign that things are different. But there too, they use the term silek, that the table was removed. So here too, he says, as long as you didn't remove the table, you could finish your dinner, but as long as you didn't remove the table, you can keep on eating all through the night. Ikada Amri, there are those who say, Amar Rava, this is what Rava said. Lo shanu elike shelo yashen. It's not about taking away the table, it's as long as you didn't fall asleep, you can keep on eating. But once you fall asleep, it's basically like obviously the day is done, the nighttime, sleep time, and now you're going to wake to the new day. And so you got to stop eating. You can't get up early and eat again. Aval yashen eino lochel, right? If you fell asleep, you can't eat anymore. Now Abaye says, wait a minute, we've got a text that says, Yashen ve'amad hareza ochel. You can sleep and get up, and you can keep on eating. But hatam b'mitnam name. But Rava responds, wait, we're talking about like napping, dozing. You didn't get into bed and fall asleep. You're talking about, you're just dozing. So you're still at the table, and you just close your eyes. So now we have to explain, what does it mean? What's mitnam name mean? And Amar Rav Ashi says, nim velo nim, tir velo tir. One is asleep but not fully asleep, awake but not fully awake. So you're kind of groggy. So the example he gives is, they call him. If they call him, he will answer, but he can't give a coherent reason. He's not he's not completely awake. Or when we remind him of something that just happened, he remembers it. So he's not so completely out of it that he doesn't know what he's talking about. But it seems to me those are 2 actually different examples, but 2 possibilities. One is he can answer you when you call him, but he doesn't give a coherent. He's not thinking clearly. The other one is, do you remember what just happened? Yeah, he remembers it, but he can't remember much else. Okay, so now we can move on. Amar Rav Kahana, Amar Rav. Yachid shekibel alav ta'anit asur b'ne'ilat sandal. This too I was a little bit confused about. So an individual who took a fast upon himself is prohibited to engage in the wearing of shoes on the day of his fast, because that's one of the signs of fasting, or at least communal fasting.
They seem to be somewhat confused about it too, I thought.
Yeah. So here he says, the reason is that we are concerned that perhaps he took a communal fast upon himself, and wearing shoes is prohibited on communal fast days. So I was like, wait a minute. But if you're, so what's the issue? If it's communal fast day, and you're forbidden from wearing shoes, And an individual who took a fast upon himself should also not wear shoes because they want you to think you're taking the communal fast. I didn't.
I think they weren't sure because they were like, if you're a sign of a fast is to not wear shoes,
Right.
but we don't want like if because there's not the communication wouldn't be there inherently. So
Yeah.
if you see somebody around town not wearing shoes, you might think, oh no, was there a communal fast that I'm not aware of? I feel
Okay.
like they were trying to avoid that, but then they kind of caught themselves in their own thing.
Well, I'll tell you, this is how ArtScroll explains it. So they said, Rav refers to one who did not specify and does not know which type of fast he accepted. That's Rashi's commentary. So it's not clear to him whether he's doing a communal fast or he made an individual fast. And so he shouldn't wear shoes. The second series of 3 and the final series of 7 public fasts, which are observed in times of drought, involve a number of prohibitions besides eating and drinking. Among them is a stricture against wearing shoes. So I guess if it's the middle of a drought and it's a communal fast, there's a lot of things you wouldn't be able to do besides just not eating and drinking. But an individual who takes a fast upon himself is only limited to eating and drinking, and people will question why you're not part of the community, maybe. And so therefore, wear the shoes so nobody will question you why you're not part of the team, why you're not part of the community. I think that, so this way, to make it, because there's other things you can't do too. I mean, you're not, at some point, you're not supposed to open your business. So there's other things as well. So that's why I guess he should declare, tomorrow I am going to have an individual fast. That helps people understand what you're doing, I think. Amrule Rabbanan l'Rav Sheshet. This is very good too. So this shows again the sages disagreeing with each other and the practical ramifications. Ha-ka-chazein Rabbanan de misayme misanaehu ve'atu levei tanita. We see sages who wear their shoes and go to the study house on a communal fast day. So this shows that there's no need to be concerned about this prohibition. And Rav Sheshet responded very negatively. Well, maybe they eat on fast days too. You can't trust these guys. Well, this relates to the difference between the Babylonians, well, we're going to see in a moment, and in Eretz Yisrael. Babylonians were a little looser on fasts, although Rav Sheshet obviously disagreed because he's a Babylonian. And in Eretz Yisrael, they were stricter. So Abai v'Rava ma'alei ki misayme apanta. They would enter the synagogues while wearing sandals on the leather of their shoes. According to Steinsaltz, they wore their shoes upside down. But what did here 6? Or does it say that they had a different explanation? Oh,
The note indicates they don't really know what apanta means.
right, exactly. They didn't know what a panta was. So according to ArtScroll, they wore the upper part of the shoe. The apanta was the upper part. So they only wore the top part, I guess, not the bottom part. Mare Mara Marzutra would switch the right shoe for the left and the left for the right. By contrast, the sages of the school of Rav Ashi would go out wearing in their usual manner, because they held, in accordance with what Shmuel said, that the only completely stringent communal fast in Babylonia is the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av. That's the only one. Therefore, in Babylonia, there's no need to be concerned that one might have taken a communal fast upon himself. So Rav Sheshet was disagreeing with fellow Babylonians. He was more strict. But you see here that they had different ways of doing it. It's just that I didn't understand why a person would be that they would be concerned he took a communal fast upon himself, unless I guess it was that Monday, Thursday, Monday deal, and not everybody's taking that fast upon themselves. And then you take a individual fast, and if you were wearing shoes, maybe people thought you would take, because you weren't eating, they thought you had taken a communal fast upon yourself, but you weren't doing it properly if you were not supposed to wear shoes, and therefore you have to either declare it, or in Babylonia they weren't that strict about it, about the wearing shoes, so that wasn't an issue. Whether you were confused what kind of fast you were taking, it's a little bit confusing to me. Now, here's another thing, and this is something we do today. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Love Adam Tanito Uforea. You can borrow your fast and then repay, which means if you can't fast on a specific day that you intended to fast, you can then make up for it on another day. And we do that today, as I mentioned. We don't fast on Shabbat. And so, I mean, that's about the only example. When Purim falls on Sunday, there's the fast of Esther. We don't fast on Shabbat, so therefore you would fast Thursday, Friday as the fast of Esther. So you're finding another day to make up the fast. So he says here, okay, so Rav Yehuda said, "V'chi neder kibel alai delo sagi delo mishalem l'tzeurei nashe kabel alai." So when I said this halacha before Shmuel, about that you can fast and repay, he said to me, and did he take a vow upon himself, which would mean that it's not possible for him to repay it, right? Again, here's the issue: is the vow is the fast a vow that you are taking upon yourself? Because according to Shmuel, then there's no out. He took upon himself, if he took it upon himself to cause himself discomfort on that day, but if he's able, he must cause himself discomfort. But if he's not able, he does not need to cause himself discomfort, in which case he need not repay the fast. Wait a minute. When I said the halacha before, he said to me, did he take about it? It should be that it is not possible for him not. So I think what he's saying is that if you vow a fast, it's your own deal. This is not a communal fast. Your own deal, then, and you say, I'm going to fast on Wednesday. So that means you're fasting. That the vow means Wednesday. If it's possible, if for some reason you can't fulfill the vow, maybe because you made a mistake and it's a holiday, then if you're able to, you can cause yourself discomfort. But if you're not able to, you don't need to you don't need to discomfort yourself on another day, because the vow is for a specific day. I think that's, let's see what the notes say. If one vowed to observe, it's one time. If one vowed to observe a fast on a particular day but forgot his vow and ate on that day, he must refrain from eating for the remainder of the day. However, if he vowed to fast without specifying a particular date, and after beginning to fast, he forgot and ate, he's required to fast on another day. So if a vow is serious, you have to fulfill it. If one vowed to observe several fasts without specifying the dates, and after starting to fast on a particular day, he wants to cancel the fast on account of some other religious obligation, or in honor of an important person, or because he was in a state of distress, he's permitted to break the fast, because he didn't, and repay it on another day, because you weren't specific. If you say Wednesday, then right? If he vowed to on a particular day, but he forgot and ate, he must refrain from eating for the rest of the day, because that's the only day you can vow. Because if I said Wednesday, but I had breakfast, I gotta finish. I can't eat it the rest of the day because I screwed up, but I have to fulfill it. But if you weren't particular, and then you said, well, I want to fast sometime this week for pious reasons, and then I don't know, something came up during the week and you really couldn't get out of it. I mean, you really wanted to get out of it. You can say, okay, I'll choose another day to fast. I can make up that day because I said I was going to fast. I just didn't choose a specific time. Okay. Ikada Amre Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Some say it's this way: Love Adam Tamito Uforea. A person may borrow his fast and pay. Ki Amrita Kamei de Shmuel Amarli. This is another version of it. Pshita Lo Yehe Ela Neder. Let it be considered only a vow, and even so, is he not required to repay a vow on the next or on another day? Since a commitment to fast is a type of vow, he's obligated to repay it. He got to pay it. So that's a different version of this thing. Oh boy, we got a lot to go. Okay. Rav Yehoshua Barei de Rav Ida Ikla Leve Rav Asi Avadu Le Egla Tilta. They were making roasting beef for dinner. And they said to him, let the master taste something. But he said, I'm fasting today. I can't eat. And they said, well, why don't you just, fast another day? Finish it, declare the end to your fast today and fast another day. Don't you hold, according to Rav Yehuda, that Rav said a person may borrow his fast and repay? And Rav Yehoshua said to them, it is a fast for a dream. Aha, this is a little different. He was fasting to rectify the negative effects of a bad dream that he experienced the night before. And if you looked at the notes in the halacha, fasting for a bad dream, that's really serious. You can even fast, as we'll see here, even on Shabbat, because you want to neutralize the bad dream. There's a belief that you had a dream for a reason, the bad dream was for a reason, and you want to do tshuva because it means something you didn't do that you should. Something you did something or didn't do something you should have done or you shouldn't have done. And that's why you had the bad dream. So it's a way of God sending you a message, do tshuva. So here's the next passage. The Gemara explains, Amar Rav Rabba bar Machasya Amar Rav Chama bar Guria Amar Rav. Yafa ta'anit lechalom ke'esh lineoret. A fast is effective to neutralize a bad dream, like fire is effective for burning chaff. Marav Chista, uvo bayom. You should do it that day. Don't wait. Fast the next day. Marav Yosef afilu b'Shabbat. You should even if it's Shabbat. If you had that bad dream and you want to clean things up, fast on Shabbat even though you're not supposed to. And then what do? My takante letev ta'anita letanita. Then you have to fast the second day during that week to make up for the fact that you fasted on Shabbat, which you shouldn't have done. So try not to have bad dreams on Friday night because you're going to end up with 2 fasts that week. But it does show the idea here that dreams were, they didn't believe, somewhere it said in one of the notes, they didn't necessarily believe that that God was sending you, that there was some kind of reality to the dream. It's just that it was interesting psychological insight. People have bad dreams because something's going on within them. And the way to overcome it, one way to overcome it is to fast and to, because fasting is a way of, looking within, reflecting on your deeds and doing something about that. Okay, here we go to the next Mishnah, long Mishnah, which is Avru elu lo na'anu beitin gozrin shalosh ta'aniyot acherot al tzibor. So first 3 fasts, nothing happens. They declare another 3 fasts. Ochlin v'shotim mib'od yom ve'asurin b'melacha uve'rechitza uve'sika uve'ne'ilat hasandal uve'tashmish hamita ve'no'alin et hamarchatzaot. Okay, so here are the things. The second set of fasts. You may eat and these are severe fasts, which one may eat and drink only while it is still day. Wait a minute. Before before the beginning of the fast. So you can eat the day before the fast, but you fast through the night. And on the day of itself, of the fast, they're prohibited to work, bathe, smearing with oil. That was a cleansing process. Wearing shoes, marital relations, and they lock the bathhouses. We've seen this before. They mentioned this Mishnah before. Avru elu v'lo natnu, Beit Din gozrin alehen od sheva. Now you have another 7 days of fasts, which are a total of 13 fasts upon the community, not including the first 3 fasts observed by the individuals. Oh, right. So we had 3 by the pious individuals, then you had 3 communal, then you have another 3 communal, then you have 7. These 7 fast days are more severe than the first ones, as on these days, in addition to all the earlier stringencies, well, here, though, you're just fasting during the day, you're eating at night. In addition to all the other things, they sound the alarm, so they blow the shofar, matri'in, they blow the shofar. They lock the stores, although shops must remain closed most of the time on these days, this whole week. On Monday, they open a little bit at nightfall to allow people to purchase food for breaking their fast. Oh, I think these are, again, Tuesday, Thursday, Monday fasts, another 7 of them. And on Thursday, they're permitted to open the stores all day because people have to go shopping for Shabbat. So you can't fast on Shabbat. And then, Avru elu v'lo na'anu mima'atin b'masal matan, b'vinyan u'v'netita, be'erusin u'v'nesiu'in, she'ilat shalom bein adam l'chavero. They decrease their engagement in business transactions. There's no building, planting, betrothals, marriages, greetings between people. You don't say hello to somebody. It's like the people have been rebuked by God. The individuals, okay, those are these pious ones, resume fasting every Monday and Thursday until the month of Nisan ends. So this is a pretty long period of time, right? Because we started in the first of Cheshvan was the big concern. Cheshvan is winter, and now we're going all the way to Nisan. This is April. After this date, they no longer pray for rain because since if Nisan ended and the rains subsequently fall, now it's a sign of a curse. And we've seen this passage from Shmuel. Is not the wheat harvest today, and then God sends rain at that time when they need to harvest the wheat, and it's a bad because you can't harvest the wheat when it's raining. Okay, so let's go to the Gemara a little bit, I think just a little more here. Bishlama kulhu, idbahu ta'anug rechitza v'sicha v'tashmish amita. So they understand prohibiting yourself from things that are joyful, pleasurable, right? This is like oneg Shabbat, ta'anug, something that's pleasurable. Aval malacha tzarhu, but going to work, that causes suffering. That's not pleasurable. For some people, I guess it is, but that's not so. So why would you stop that? Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Amar Kra, Kadshut som kir'u atzara isfu zikenim. There's a verse in Joel that says, sanctify a fast, call a solemn assembly, gather the elders. This indicates that a fast day is like a day of assembly. Atzeret is the word here, ka atzeret. And that's like Shmini Atzeret, right? And Shavuot is considered an Atzeret. It's a day of gathering. So if it's a holiday, Ma Atzeret Asur Ba'asiyat Melacha, just like those holidays that we call Atzeret, is you're forbidden to work, Af Ta'anit Asur Ba'asiyat Melacha. So on a Ta'anit, you're also forbidden from working. But then we got a problem. Ima atzeret me'urta af ta'anit nami me'urta. But we've been talking about fasts that go from, again, dawn to nightfall. But a day of assembly like Shavuot, Shmini Atzeret, that holiday goes from night to night. It's not just a daytime thing. So maybe you should fast from the previous evening. But there's mitigating is the third part of that verse. Amar Rav Zera, ledidi mi parshali minei de Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, Amar Kra. Isfuz kenim. In that verse, it says also gather the Zikanim, gather the elders. Dumi da asifat zkenim, a gathering of elders, when they would have a communal meeting of elders, ma asifat zkenim bayom, that would be a daytime thing. Av tzom nami bayom. So you see here, what they're doing here is they're reading the verse as both expanding and limiting. So the part of the verse that says, Kiru atzara, that means it's like a gathering, like an atzara, a holiday of the atzara, where you would fast, or you wouldn't do any work. But because it also says these foods zikanim, that part limits it. So it's, yeah, you don't do any work, but you don't do any work during the day because the zikanim would meet during daytime. Okay. But there's then the responses. Ve'ema mitahara. But if so, one can say that the fast, that's right, mitahara means noon, should begin from noon because that's when they would gather at noon. Amar Rav Shesha Barei de Rav Idi, Messiah le Rav Huna de Amar Mitzafra Kinufiyah. The gathering on fast days, this supports the opinion of Rav Huna, who said the public gathering on fast days occurs in the hours of the morning. So we're back to morning now, so the whole day. All right, and then the last piece here before we get to the next page. Hechi avdi amar Abaye mitzafra ad palga the yoma mayaninan b'mile demata. From the morning until the middle of the day, they would focus on, it says here, it's literally civic affairs, but I think his translation here, his understanding is correct, that the corruptions in the city, the moral corruptions in the city, the civic concerns, why is this happening to us? We're having reflection time. Let's talk about why we're suffering so. There's no rain. And that's in the middle of the day. Mikan ve'elach, after that, riva de yoma karena de sifra ve'aftarta. After that, they would do study. They would read the sifra, which is Torah, and aftarta is the haftarah, the prophet section. Mikan ve'elech ba'enan rachme. After that, hour or so of the day, the next quarter of the day, a few hours, they would pray. Shene'emar v'yakumu al amdam v'yikra'u b'sefer Torat Adonai Eloheihem revi'it hayom revi'it midvadim u'mishtachavim l'Adonai Eloheihem. This is a passage from Nehemiah, and this was from the reason that they were in this fasting mode on that day was they come back, Ezra and Nehemiah come back to the land of Israel. They have the mandate to rebuild the temple and to rebuild the community in the land of Israel because the Persians have conquered the Babylonians and they let the Jews go back. And Ezra and Nehemiah find all these problems in the community. The most prominent is that the Jews in Israel have married locals from other groups, and they demand that all of them divorce their wives if they're not Jews. And they haven't been following the Torah. One of the things we find out in the book of Nehemiah and Ezra is they weren't observing Sukkot. So all of these things that they've been doing wrong or they haven't been doing at all, they have to do public tshuva. And so here in this passage, it says they stood up in their place, they read in the book of the Torah, a fourth part of the day, and another part they confessed and prostrated themselves before the Lord their God. So they're translating that as stood up in their place. They read the book of Torah. I guess staying up in their place is reflecting, reading the book of Torah, study, and then confessing and prostrating themselves is prayer. And so they're trying to follow the passage according to the book of Nehemiah, according to this verse. But we'll see in 13 that they disagree. It doesn't have to, they question that order of the day by reading the text differently. So, all right. So we've gone a little over time today, but it's okay. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions.
I don't have a question, but it's more of just a comment of, for myself, the most experience I have when it comes to fasting is in Scouts. If you're familiar at all, there's something called the Order of the Arrow, which is an honor camping society. It's the Brotherhood of Cheerful Service. And in order to gain membership to it, you go through something called an ordeal, which has 4 parts to it. You spend the night in solitude outside under the stars.
Mm.
Then the next day is a day of arduous labor. It's spent in silence, and at one point it was fasting.
Ooh.
However, for health and safety reasons, it has been converted to scant food and plenty of water.
Okay.
And they all mean their own special thing. But the scant food part of it and the labor is more about serving cheerfully. And around Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur has its own separate things, but they all kind of have a lot of parallels that I find. And the fasting aspect of it is supposed to increase the level of the arduous labor and give you more to focus on, apart from just being hungry. And this last page, as far as dozing was a thing, we don't eat, like lunch is like half of a sandwich, like half of a peanut butter. And so most of the time you like scarf down the sandwich and you fall asleep for a little bit for energy. So it had a lot like this sort of stuff. And fasting, the religious aspect, as far as fasting, it gives you something when you're fasting, I have found, at least doing the ordeal more than once for other reasons, you don't think about food as much as you would think. And I think while fasting, it reminds you that we eat because we're bored, because it's delicious, stuff like that. I say here with this donut, but you don't really think about, I think it reminds you when you're fasting that you don't need as much as you think.
Oh, okay.
So
that's good.
That's my thought on it.
Very nice. All right, very good. So I'll send out the notes for this week. Hopefully we'll see everybody. Don't forget, Tuesday night, Meira Camille is going to be talking about her new book that she wrote on her life, her mother's life, and her mother's conversations with God, which should be very interesting to hear about. And that's with our Tuesday Minion. All right, everybody, have a good week. Take care.
Have a good night.
Bye.